In today's video, I'm going to be sharing how to quilt your quilt on your domestic machine without getting any puckers on it. Hi, I'm Kim Jamieson-Hirst of Chatterbox Quilts, and recently I had someone ask me, they were struggling with quilting a project and they were getting all these puckers on the back. So they were asking me, how do I avoid that? And this is something that a lot of new quilters probably are having issues with and don't know how to do it properly to avoid that issue. So let's talk about how to do that. First off, want to make sure that my quilt top and my backing is nice and stiff, okay? And how I do that is by using some spray starch or spray starch alternative. I like to use Acorn Precision Piecing Products Easy Press Fabric Treatment, and it comes in a small bottle or it comes in like a big gallon, which is how I have it in my studio. And I just put it into a spray bottle. I spray my top, I would spray my backing as well, and then I press it to get that stiffer feeling, okay? Works better when you are quilting, works better when you're cutting too. It just works better, okay? So it's a great product. If you haven't used this product before, check it out. I'll put a link up above in the description below for you to find that product. So once I've done that, a few other things I do. I've got my sandwich here, as you can see. Next thing I do, I've got markings on here, okay? That's up to you whether you want to mark or not. Today we're going to be using like a serpentine stitch, so I wanted to put some markings in between. I'm going to be doing on the seams too, but I wanted to put it in the middle-ish of the blocks as well. So I marked it with this chubby crayon, okay? So it comes off with steam iron. So I can see it really well, but it'll come off very easily, so I like that product. Check up above or in the description below for a link to that product. Now the other thing I've done, which I'm finding I'm doing more and more, is to stitch a little less than 1/4 inch all the way around the exterior of my quilt top, okay? Keeps everything in place. This is spray basted, by the way, but you could be pin basting your project as well, but I just like to keep those edges down as well. And as we do quilting, if you're doing really dense quilting, it'll shrink the project in, so by stitching it along the edges here, that helps to prevent that issue, okay? And today we're going to be talking about doing some walking foot quilting, all right? So when we're doing walking foot quilting, we want to make sure we're using the proper foot, right? So let's go to the machine and I want to talk about the foot and why I'm using that when I'm doing this type of quilting. Now, I want to talk about two things. I want to talk about where I'm going to start and how I'm going to quilt my project, and I want to talk about the foot I'm using. So today I'm working with the Janome CM17, so thanks so much to Janome Canada for allowing me to use this machine to show you in the video today. And I want to talk about the foot. Now, I did mention a walking foot. On this particular machine, we're talking about using the AccuFeed Flex system. So while I say walking foot, it is not actually a walking foot. It is different than that, but it works the same way, okay? Just for simplicity's sake, I will say walking foot. I have the UD foot on here, which is an open toe foot. You'll see that in just a moment. But I like to use a walking foot because it moves the top layer and the bottom layer at the same time. So the foot will grab and move and move and move. So that will prevent pushing the fabric along, which can cause those puckers, right? So that's the first thing. So if you were using a foot like this is just the regular foot that comes on the machine, and you probably have a similar one on your machine, you may find that if you're using this foot, as it goes along, it starts pushing the fabric, okay? Causing those puckers on the back, maybe even on the front. So by using a walking foot, or in this case, the AccuFeed Flex foot, that issue is, if not completely eliminated, you know, pretty much eliminated, all right? So that's what I want to use here. And I'm using one of the stitches on the machine. I'll talk about that in just a moment. The other thing that's really important is how you stitch your quilt. And by that, I mean, where are you starting? How are you moving through your quilt, okay? So you want to start in the center of your quilt, okay? In this case, I'm starting vertically, and I move out to one side, okay? Then I will come back. Often I will turn the sandwich if it's small enough and go out to the other side, okay? Then again, similarly, we would go in the center and move out to one side, back, and moving out to the other side. So by doing that, we prevent that distortion that can happen. We're not pushing it all in one direction, okay, as can happen. So if you start at this side and you're not using a walking foot that's feeding your fabric evenly top and bottom, and you just start going across, you know, you can start pushing that fabric, which can create those puckers, especially if you're doing something like a crosshatch, for example, which is kind of what I'm doing today on a bigger scale, but I'm going to be using this serpentine stitch on the machine. So we know we're going to start in the center and move out to one side. We know we're going to go back and go the other way, and then opposite, same kind of thing. Center out, center out. So think of it that way, center out, center out. and that will help prevent a lot of issues that you can have when you are quilting your quilt. So let's talk about the stitch I'm using on this machine. Okay, so there are some decorative quilt stitches on the Janome CM17, and that's what I'm using today. I'm using the serpentine stitch, and I can adjust it. I can adjust the width and length of it. I'm just adjusting the length, I guess. I went to 1.7. So the width is 5, the length is 1.7. Okay, so as I mentioned, I'll move my foot out of the way there. We don't need him. As I mentioned, we are going to start in the center here. Okay, doesn't matter if it's horizontal, vertical, whatever. But we're going to start in the center here. And I just need to do one more thing on this machine. I can make sure that it's got that AccuFeed Flex system working when you're using decorative type stitches. A lot of times it just would work with the straight stitches, but on this machine you can set it up to work on decorative stitches too. So let's see how this works. So if I find that it looks like it's pushing the fabric a little bit, okay, if you have that issue happening on your machine, you can also lessen the presser foot pressure, okay? All right, so here we have the first one done. Okay, I've got a light color thread in the back. That's looking pretty good. Tension looks good and everything. So my next step is to move out. Doesn't matter if I go to the right, or to the left, but I'm going to move out. And this time I'm going across the seams. Okay, so I'm going to start again. It'll lock my stitches. And here we go. All right, row 2 done. So now I would continue across. I've only got one more row here, but to save me some time and you time, I would just turn this around now. It's always a good idea too when you're going back and forth like this is to change the direction you're stitching. That can also help if you're having puckering. And then I would go back and do this particular line as well. So we'll do that one. And then we'll take a look and see how our results are looking. Okay, so we've got 3 done here. It's looking pretty nice. Go in the back and see how we're doing. Looks great. Okay, no puckers or anything like that, right? So that looks good. Now, the next thing I would continue out. Like I would have continued out and doing that, but for the sake of just doing a demo here, let's now go the other way. So the next thing I would be doing is going into this center. It's actually a seam I'm going to start on this time. Here. The nice thing about this stitch is that because it goes across the seam, it's quite flexible and forgiving for you, right? So I'm just kind of lining up the needle in about the center of my foot. That's what I'm trying to do as I go And I run that along the center of the seam, the center of the foot, along the seam, I should say. I guess the seam doesn't have a center, does it? Along the seam to try and get it relatively even on both sides. Okay, now sometimes you come into this issue because we are moving the fabric a little bit as we come along. So when I come to the edge here, if I find there's a tad, a little bit of a pucker I'm going to quilt in there, all I'm going to do is I'm going to lift up my foot here and I'm going to put my seam ripper in. I should have done this a little sooner because I could see it coming. Sometimes this will happen right at the very, very edge, okay? And I will just cut a couple of stitches there. Hopefully not my fabric. I know it's awkward to get in here. Like I said, I could see this coming. I just didn't cut it off. Okay, there we go. So now I can release that pressure a bit. And keep it going. Okay, yeah, so that's going to be fine. All right, and of course we're going to cover this edge with binding. You're not going to see that little bit there, but I wanted to make sure it didn't get a little bit of a catch, a little bit of a pucker there. Okay, so we got one going across. And this is when you really see a lot of these puckers, okay? So you can see we have no issues going along here at all where we cross. Sometimes where we cross other lines we've already stitched, that's where you can get those puckers too. All right, so my next step is that I would keep going in whichever direction I want, one or the other. So we would do another one. Let's just do one more here. And I'm going to increase my speed a little bit. We can go a little bit faster, I think. Now you can see again, I've got this little thing at the edge here. So not a problem. We'll just release. I mean, this is really close to the edge. And because I'm using charm squares, I've got this weird little, some fabric there and some not. All right. Okay, so there we go there. So we crossed there again. Let's see how we're doing on the back. No puckers. All right. So I would just continue on that side. And then, of course, I would turn it around and I would do it on the other, going out from the center out to the other side again, and it would be all quilted. So you need to remember a few things when you're doing this, okay? First, get your fabric really well starched, top and bottom. I want to say bobbin, don't starch your bobbin. Top and bottom fabrics, okay? That's always very helpful. Make sure that you have basted it down, finished your little edges there. You see I released a couple of them, no problem. If I need to do that, I can. Sometimes I need to, sometimes I don't. If you are pin basting, I didn't mention this, but if you're pin basting, make sure you do that every 3 or 4 inches. Again, make sure you're spreading your quilt top out and everything right so that you avoid any puckers, any excess fabric hanging around in the center there. And you want to start in the center and move to one side, turn your sandwich around, go back to the center, out from the other side, and then the same thing in the opposite direction. So it makes a big difference where you start quilting when you're quilting on your domestic sewing machine. It also makes a big difference what foot you're using. So in this particular case, I'm doing walking foot quilting. I want to make sure I'm using, whatever walking foot works for your machine. On this particular machine, I'm using the AccuFeed Flex foot. And in this case, I had the UD sole. There's different soles that come with this machine, just so that's an open toe one so you can see what I was doing. Now, if you were free motion quilting, the same thing would apply, except you'd be using a free motion or darning foot, but you would still start in the same area and move out as well. So I hope you found this helpful. and I hope it helps you to avoid puckers on your quilt top. Now, I've talked about the AccuFeed Flex system on the Joey machine, but I haven't shown you how to activate it, how to use it. Don't worry, I got you covered. Check out this video that has all the information that you need. And for more helpful quilting information, be sure to go to my website at www.chatterboxquilts.com.